Hello, everyone online. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of close to tears here. Uh, this is, I've been giving lectures here for a long time. Shoho Michael has invited me for many years and Nenzen in the recent past. But this is the first time I will be giving a talk as an actual, not invited, but part of Jikoji. And the one thing that Nenzen did not say, but which I went in and offered incense to Koun this morning to say, my tea ceremony teacher was a student of Koun Chino Sensei. And she told me right when I started tea, you should be studying with Koun. But it was right after I had asked my teacher, Les K, to be my teacher. So it was like, well, I can't very well go in and say, gee, guess what? I've changed my mind. And yet it came full circle because here I am. And here you are. And here Michael is. And here Koun is. And here are all of you. So the first thing I want to say is Sona Bona, which in Zulu means hello, but the literal translation is I see you. I see you. I see you. I think for us to be seen by others is actually a fairly rare thing. We see each other in a conventional way, but we don't actually see that the person who's in front of us, no matter how long we've known them, is not the same person that we saw even 5 minutes ago. To be able to come with that freshness moment to moment is actually our practice. Coming here after so many years of being a guest and now coming as family, that's a gift. So first of all, where is the person who arrived on a bicycle this morning? I am impressed.
Yeah, I took it in Merrill.
When I realized that I saw your bike stopped here, I just thought you were coming to do the trails, and I was already impressed because it's raining. But when I saw that you had come here, I was like, there is a Zen student. So thank you. So I wanted to start with a very famous koan, part of the teaching stories of Zen practice. And it is stepping forward from the top of 100-foot pole. That's like a flagpole, right? 100 feet. So Master Sekiso said, how will you step forward from the top of a 100-foot pole? Another eminent master of old said, even though one who is sitting on the top of a 100-foot pole has entered realization, it is not yet real. He or she must step forward from the top of the pole and manifest his or her whole body throughout the world in the 10 directions. Mumon makes a commentary on all these koans in one book. And his commentary for this is, there will be no reason to call you dishonorable. Even so, just tell me, how do you step forward from the top of the 100-foot pole? Sa. So With koans, it's usually a good idea to sort of tease them apart a little bit before we get to their relevance in our daily life, which they have to have. So the top of the 100-foot pole is the stage of complete emptiness when body and mind drop away. When you attain self-knowledge, self-realization, when you deeply understand no self, no separation. Your eye, third eye, will open to that state of consciousness where there is no one who sees nor anything to be seen. Dualistic thinking, in other words, subject and object, finally falls away. There is no you, there is no me, there is no other. It's all one. However, if we remain in that place, that state of self-realization on top of the 100-foot pole, we will get attached to it. We will think, oh, good, check. I finally did it. I'm here. I've arrived. Good for me. I am so special. This is called Zen sickness, because now you've given up the attachment to all this other stuff, and yet now you are caught in attachment to your own realization. And if this sounds odd, I can tell you, I know at least a couple of people that is exactly where they are stuck. They had some big understanding early in their Zen practice, and they have been sitting on the top of that 100-foot pole ever since, wondering why they can't get any further, because they keep trying to have the same experience they had 30 or 40 years ago. But as I said before, you are not the same person you were even when you walked in the door today. Right now, you are a new person, a new iteration of you. So when we come to the top of that high pole, we can't stay there. If you stay there, for instance, it'll be very difficult for you to drive home, because you're not going to be in the car. You're going to be in emptiness, and you're probably going to have an accident. So we have to go back and forth between what we call the relative world, which is the world we pretty much always inhabit, and the absolute realm, where we have this incredible realization of no self. But we keep going back and forth. The idea is to be able to do that with some ease. So we need to take that step forward off the 100-foot pole in order to really and completely manifest body and mind in the 10 directions. So Mumon goes on to say, turn your body around. This is to be able to move and act freely and positively at will. At will, not at the events and circumstances that are in front of you, but to be able to turn and move and make an appropriate response to what's happening right now. Not what happened last week, even if it was the same situation. It's not. It's a new situation. To be able to just meet, sona bona. I see you, I meet you right here. But it's not easy to do this. Some of you may be at the beginning of your practice. Some of you may have been practicing a long time. And even for people, it is still not easy to jump off a pole into what? This is the scary part. I mean, we feel like we've worked really hard to get this realization. I've been sitting for years and years and years and all that, to get to that top of that pole and be able to say, oh, I did it. I had this incredible opening, wonderful. And now we're supposed to jump off into what? Is there a net? Is someone going to catch me? Or am I going to just fall through the air and splat on the ground? It's a scary idea. So for anyone who knows me any length of time, they know that my favorite American teaching story is The Wizard of Oz. And I don't mean the book, I mean the movie. It's one of only two movies that I've identified that is infinitely better than the book. It's usually the other way around. But when they made The Wizard of Oz, it was right about the time when they discovered how to make color movies. Before The Wizard of Oz, everything was black and white. And they use it in this amazing way. For those of you who do not know this movie, and that may be some of you, it's about a journey of self-discovery. The main character is Dorothy. And then Zen has her hair in pigtails, which reminds me so much of the way Dorothy looks in the film. Thank you. I did not ask her to do this. Dorothy represents all of us. She's a teenager. She's dissatisfied with her life out in the country. Her parents are long gone, and she lives with Uncle Henry and Auntie Em in the Midwest of our country. And unfortunately, her nemesis, Elmira Gulch, don't you love that name, Elmira Gulch? Don't you already hate her? Is down the road, and she's got this little dog, Toto. And Toto is always getting into Miss Gulch's garden, and Miss Gulch is always out there. And finally, Miss Gulch has had enough. And she has got the sheriff involved, and she is coming to take Toto away to be destroyed. Now, if you're a teenage girl and you're distraught because you're dissatisfied with your mundane, humdrum life, your dog is really important. But like us, Dorothy wants something different than what she's got. I mean, she's got this loving couple, Auntie Em and Uncle Henry, who have taken her in. She has a place to live. She looks well groomed. She's always wearing this cute little gingham dress. Hair is always nice. And she still wants something different. The same way we do. We always believe there is something better to be gotten. Only to discover when we get there, it's not exactly what we were expecting. And so, like Dorothy, we get caught up in what we think of as the real world. And in the movie, the real world at this point is all in black and white. So there's a woman who writes for the Boston Globe, Helen Goodman, and this is her observation. Normal is getting dressed in clothes that you buy for work, driving through traffic in a car that you are still paying for, in order to get to the job that you need so that you can pay for the clothes and the car and the house that you leave empty all day in order to afford to live in it. If the life worth living exists for us somewhere out in the future, it implies that our life right now is not good enough. This way of seeing becomes a habit. In other words, we develop a habit of this then is what we are bound to experience in any future that emerges for us in the present. We become habituated to a world characterized by lack, dissatisfaction, the first noble truth. So like Dorothy, most of us, unless we are truly enlightened, have developed a habit of looking at our life from the lens of scarcity, as something that there's something not quite all together and deficient. And if only I had X, if only I could do Y, if only that person over there really loved me, or if only that person over there would stop hating me, or whatever it is. Yeah. It is characterized instead of by opportunity, it is characterized by lack. Now, if we're lucky, maybe some giant crisis comes along, which is what happens for Dorothy. And accidentally, we stumble into a practice like this. Sometimes it's out of curiosity. Sometimes it's out of some education that you've had along the way. Sometimes it's a crisis. Often it's a crisis. Some terrible thing has happened and you are like, what am I supposed to do with this? All right. In Dorothy's case, it's a hurricane. That's pretty big. It's so big that it takes her house off the ground while she's in it. And it spins all around. And what I love about this is just like the spinning of our mind. As she wakes up, she gets hit in the head, and then she wakes up from being hit in the head. So you can assume she's had a concussion. And she's looking out the window. And everything in her life, you know, the chickens are going by, the cow is going by, all the crates and barrels and all that stuff is going by. And then all of a sudden you hear the music that used to scare the hell out of me. Da 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 da. And Elmira Gulch comes on her bicycle, looking very mean. And then all of a sudden she changes into a witch. Streaming black robes. I remember for years I had to cover my eyes at that point because it scared me so much. It doesn't have to be a hurricane. It can be the death of a loved one. It can be rejection by somebody that you really cared about, that you thought you had a relationship with. It could be losing your job. It could be losing your house, your car, your clothes, all those things that you've spent all this time getting, working hard for. I come from a little town called Altadena in Southern California. If you recall from the news, my town is completely gone in the fires that happened in Southern California. Nothing is left. Fortunately, none of my family lived there at that point, but I did. And all the stores and all the homes and all the streets that and where the fire started, Eaton Canyon, I used to play in that canyon all the time in the stream. It's gone. I mean, the canyon's still there, and I'm sure the stream has come back, but it's all gone. And I think about the people who were living there, and they have lost everything because a fire means all the stuff inside your house as well. Everything. Think about losing everything all at once. So it's a crisis. So this story contains these amazing archetypes that you see in the first scene in the black and white. All the characters, the men who work on the farm. Then Dorothy gets hit in the head and the house goes up and finally, boom, it lands. And Dorothy wandering around and she goes to the front door. It's still in black and white. She opens the door. Oh, and now the giant purple flowers. And she turns to Toto and she says, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. It's the same way we feel. When we come to practice, we're just coming from our little black and white world. And then we sit down And after a while, it's like, whoa, this is amazing. To finally shut up, to just be with your breath, to see what arises on its own. So for Dorothy, it's this technicolor world, and all of a sudden there's this, she's like, what the heck is that? And it's the Munchkins. The Munchkins are these little people. This is Munchkin land. Unfortunately, her house has done a very bad thing, which she doesn't realize at first, because all of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes this giant bubble. It's amazing what they could do even then with special effects, but this giant bubble starts coming through the air, and then the bubble goes away, and this beautiful person is there with a wonderful British accent. she's asking Dorothy, oh, those are the Munchkins, and they want to know, are you a good witch or a bad witch? Dorothy's like looking around like, who are you talking to? But I'm not a witch at all. Oh, well, that is what the Munchkins think, because, well, and she says, well, I'm not a witch. Witches are ugly and old. And the Munchkins all laugh again, right? And she said, why are they laughing? Well, because I am a witch. You're a witch, but you're so beautiful. That's because I'm a good witch. And then she has to explain that the Munchkins are very grateful to her because she's just dropped her house on the Wicked Witch of the West. And Dorothy's like, what? And she looks, and all you see are these two little legs sticking out, and all of a sudden they curl up and whoop, they go under the house. Dorothy is really upset by this. But this is what happens in our practice. We come to our little technicolor world of practice, and we realize that just by coming, we have dropped a house on our selfishness, on our foolishness, on our self-involvement. You may think that you're sitting here just for you, but it is not true. You are sitting here with all beings, and you have just dropped a house on your self-orientation. But, of course, it isn't enough that she's dropped it on one witch. The sister of that witch is still alive and well, and she is not happy. And she appears in a cloud of green smoke, which as a child looked magical, but as an adult, you begin to see where it's coming up through the floor. And she is going to get revenge. She is going to get her, and she wants the ruby slippers. When you first saw the feet under the house, you didn't, they were just these little black things. But now, all of a sudden, Glinda says, well, go and get them. And the feet go under the house, and there's no ruby slippers, and she, where are the ruby slippers? And there they are, on Dorothy's feet. And there they'll stay. Until when the witch tries to take them, and they're like electric. What are the ruby slippers? The ruby slippers are our desire to be enlightened. We have, all of you have had ruby slippers put on you today. You just don't know it yet. And Dorothy is as surprised as anyone to look down at her feet with her little blue socks, these beautiful ruby slippers. But all she says, and I love this, go home. I just want to go home. And Glinda doesn't know how to do this, but she says, there is this great wizard, the Wizard of Oz. And with that, all the Munchkins are, you know. But how do I get to this wizard? Oh, well, it's a very long road. But I think if you start here And it is only then that we notice that there is this circular spiral of a golden road. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road, all the munchkins are saying. And that, of course, leads into a song because, of course, it's a musical and I'm not going to sing it here, although I could. So along the way, though, Dorothy meets the archetypes of our lives. The first one she meets is the scarecrow. The scarecrow has been up in this cornfield forever and ever. He's stuffed with straw. And, she's asking, she doesn't know he's alive, in a sense. She's trying to figure out, she's come to this intersection. She doesn't know which way to go. And all of a sudden, that way's nice. Who spoke? Of course, you could go that way. You spoke. I did. It turns out that the scarecrow was not given a brain, according to him. She gets him off the nail and he joins her. And when he finds out that she's being chased by a witch, I'm going with you. The scarecrow represents our intelligence. It is your intelligence that brought you here today. Along the way, they meet a tin man, a man made entirely of tin. And he's got a brain, but he's missing another very important part. No heart. And he says it with so much, that you're thinking, how could he not have a heart and have all that feeling? And when he finds out about the witch, because she shows up and, he protects Dorothy, I will take you to the wizard myself too. So now there's 3 of them plus little Toto. And the final one they come along to is the lion. And the lion sees Toto and starts chasing him around until finally he gets close enough and Dorothy slaps him on the nose. Oh, why'd you do that? She says, well, you're nothing but a coward. I know. The lion represents courage. So you have wisdom, you have compassion, but you need one more thing to do this practice. And nobody talks about it very much, but we all who practice, we know how important it is. You have to have the courage to hang in there when your life is total bollocks. Because it happens to everybody. Some hurricane is going to come to your life. I can verify this. I'm sure Michael can verify this. I'm sure that Nenzin can verify this, and Sylvia, and all of you who have long practice can say, yes, there have been some moments when I thought, oh my God, how am I going to get through this? So you're probably wondering, so Glinda represents the good, obviously, and the Wicked Witch represents the evil, right? Good and evil, all those things. But you're probably wondering, what's Toto? Well, Toto is love and affection and creativity all in one, because it is Toto who actually ends up doing a lot of things that get Dorothy out of trouble. So in Buddhism, we often talk a lot about wisdom and compassion. They are considered to be the 2 aspects of Buddha mind. But we won't get very far without courage, which includes perseverance, which, considering that you all drove up a windy road today in the rain and the fog, I think you're already halfway there. So the interesting thing that happens along kill or get rid of or sleep or whatever it is so that she can get those ruby slippers, because it turns out until Dorothy either steps out of them on her own free will, which Glinda says never ever do that, or she dies. The witch cannot have them, and they have great power. So it comes to this final point. She's escaped from the witch. And it turns out, the funny thing is, and this is a spoiler in case you haven't seen it, everyone has tried to get rid of this witch. And Glinda even says, be gone before a house drops on you. She doesn't know where houses come from. But in the end, Dorothy and the Tin Man and the Straw Man and Lion and Toto are running away from the witch in her own castle, being chased by her henchmen, her minions, when they come to an intersection with a tower that's open. And there's guards on both sides, and there's no way. And the witch is really cruel. And she takes her broom and she gets fire from a torch. And she says, want to play a little game with fire, Straw Man? And she throws it at him. And Dorothy just instinctually looks around. And there's a bucket of water. And she throws it on the Straw Man. But the witch is standing right behind him. It turns out it's the one thing. There's always one thing that gets the bad guys, right? It's the one thing that can stop the witch. And she's, I'm melting. And she starts going down. And there's all of a sudden there's nothing left but a black mass with a little hat. And Dorothy is now like looking at the guards going, what's going to happen now? I just killed your leader. And instead, they all kneel before her. Hail to Dorothy, because they have been in her thrall. What is the witch? She is the evil in our hearts. She is the mean thoughts. She is the jealousy. She is the, envy. She's all those other parts of us that we would rather not see, but which are there. She's the anger. We all have these things. They are part of being human. And sometimes, I just had this conversation with my group yesterday. Sometimes anger is very useful. Our problem is we can get attached to doing it. We can attach to being jealous all the time. We can become attached to being envious and thinking other people have more than we have. And so the witch represents that. And the fact that it is water that destroys her, I find fascinating. Because you have these seeds in you of doing good things, having positive emotions, and having negative. And which ones are you going to water? And in this case, it's actually water that defeats those seeds of evil in Dorothy's world. But now she's in a real conundrum. She still doesn't know how to get home. But she's gone to visit this wizard. It was the wizard who made her go to the castle because he said, oh, I'll do anything you want, but you have to bring me her broom. And the straw man's thing. But if we have to get her broom, then we'll have to kill her. Bring me the broom of the witch and I will help you get home. This is all done, with fake stuff. And, there's a big head that's speaking and very scary. And the lion, they have to keep holding on to the lion because he keeps trying to run down the hall. But here's the thing. Every time something needs to happen, the straw man figures, he figures something out. Like at one point, in order for them to get away from the witch in the beginning in the castle, he sees that a chandelier is connected to a rope that's right there. And he's got the Tin Man sitting next to him. And he looks at the rope and he grabs the Tin Man and his axe. And the chandelier comes down and stops a whole bunch of the knights and off they run. That was pretty. Every time something bad happens, the Tin Man starts to cry. And he is always creaking anyway. He's rusted. It's like, stop crying. I don't have very much oil left. Who cries? Somebody who has a very sensitive heart for a creature that has no heart. And then finally, every time there's something that requires a little courage, it's the lion who steps forward, the one who's the coward. This is to show us all. We may not think we're very smart. We may not think we're very compassionate. And we may not think we're very brave. But we all have those qualities. It just takes time to develop them and to believe in them, to know they are here and to use them at the appropriate time. So now they have the Wicked Witch's broom and they go back to the wizard and he starts doing this whole, oh, how very clever of you, la, la, la. But it is Toto who looks to the side and suddenly sees that there's like this curtain over there. And Toto goes over and he grabs the curtain with his teeth and starts pulling it. And there's a man who's doing all these buttons and wheels and stuff. And then through the speaker, he says, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Who is the wizard? We think the wizard is the teacher. But there's actually nothing special about the teacher. We can pretend, we can wear all these fancy clothes, we can carry around nice sticks, We can look like we're really important, and all the little bells and whistles and, the big voices and all of that. We can sound really smart. We can sound like we know what we're talking about. But actually, we're all just behind this curtain because even we are not completely developed and realized yet. And finally, Dorothy goes over and says, who are you? Well, I am the great and powerful Wizard of Oz. You are? Yes, I'm afraid it's, well, you're a humbug. Yes, I am a humbug. And to any teacher who says that is not true, I claim differently. We are all humbugs at some point, thinking we know something that we don't. Trying to convince all of you that we know something that we don't. And so he gives out these gifts. And it's hilarious because he gives this one gift of, a diploma from a famous university to the scarecrow. And suddenly the scarecrow is, doing the Pythagorean algorithm. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, God, I have a brain. Well, he always had a brain. And then he gives the Tin Man a certificate of, well, there are these famous people that are well, they're good deed doers. He was trying to say the word philanthropist. And he hands him this, and there's a little heart that hangs down from a cord. And the Tin Man starts to cry. Oh, I have a heart. Tin Man, stop crying. We don't have any more oil. And then he gives the lion this big, sort of military cross, the fleur de lis of, courageous activity for going and I got up against the witch. And the lion is like, it practically faints. But then Dorothy says, I don't think there's anything in your bag for me to get back to Kansas. And the wizard, who is a teacher, who does know something, he says, child, you cut me to the quick. I came here many years ago in an hot air balloon. And when I landed, I was immediately proclaimed Wizard of Oz. And that's the role I played ever since. And so I am a Kansas man myself, and I will take you back to Kansas. So now there's this big scene, and everyone's there, and the archetypes are all standing around, and the wizard is inside the basket of the hot air balloon, but it gets let go too soon, and Dorothy's not in it yet. And he starts going, she says, come back, come back. And the most famous line in the movie, I think, is, he turns to her, he says, I'm sorry, I can't. I don't know how it works. I don't know how it works either. I don't know how it works that you sit for hours and hours at a time staring at a blank wall, wrestling with whatever's inside of you, perhaps crying, perhaps laughing, perhaps being confused. I don't know how it works. I only know that it does. So I can't help you with your practice in that sense. I can only encourage you to let you know it is a possibility. You all have a hot air balloon somewhere inside of you that's going to get you to the top of that 100-foot pole. But then Glinda comes along in her little bubble again, Deus ex machina. And she stops, and the second most famous line just about, Dorothy goes running up to her. Can you help? I want to go home. Can you help? And Glinda says, oh, you've always been able to go home. I have? Yes. You've always known how to go home. I have? And the straw man says, Dorothy, what is it that you know? Well, it's all beautiful here, and I love all of you, but I know that I want to go home. And all you have to do is click your heels 3 times and say, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. And little by little, you see Dorothy, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. And the next scene, Dorothy is lying in bed in black and white, home in her own bed, with Auntie Em and Uncle Henry right next to her. Oh, Dorothy, you're back. And she's, I was in the most beautiful place, but all I kept saying was, I want to go home. And here I am, and here you are. And then the 3 farmhands. The first looks amazingly like the straw man. And the second looks just like the Tin Man. And the third one, whose name is Hunk, looks just like the lion. And you were there. And you. And then the wizard who she meets on the road, who's just a traveling wizard salesman, shows up. And you were there too. And they're all like, yeah, you've been unconscious, you've been out there. But it doesn't matter. What did she learn? There's an old saying in Zen. At first, mountains are just mountains. Rivers are just rivers. And then a little practice. Mountains are no longer mountains and rivers are no longer rivers. That's the technical part. And then finally, that's the 100-foot pole, you're at the top. It's when you step off and re-enter your daily, mundane, black and white, wonderful world. These mountains are mountains and rivers are rivers. We go back and forth. Relative world, absolutely. Black and white, technicolor. I want to leave you with one thing though. Many people, when they first come to practice, there is something inside of you and in me. I felt this way. The very first time I walked into a zendo, it wasn't this one, but it looked very similar, with these black cushions and an altar I'd never seen such a thing before. The only thing I'd ever seen was a beautiful Japanese home in the Huntington Gardens in Southern California with tatami mats and shoji screen, but this looked a little different. But the moment I walked into that room, everything felt familiar. And this thought rose in my mind. I'm home. I didn't know I was looking for home. It arose all of its own accord. And just like Dorothy, I just want to go home. What home are we going to other than our truest self? When we finally take our understanding and let go of our self-orientation and start taking care of everything that is in front of us, everyone that is in front of us, when we finally see each person and each moment as complete in and of itself, that is enlightenment. That is jumping off the 100-foot pole. And so there is a verse at the end of the koan that says this: making the eye on the forehead blind, we cling to the mark on the scale, throwing away a body and life. One blind person leads many blind people. So you have probably heard mention the third eye. This is the eye of consciousness. And it says, though, and this is the part of the beginning, if you get attached to self-realization, the world of emptiness, the world of enlightenment, then that eye gets blinded. You can't see out of it anymore. So there are different ways to understand the other lines about blindness. That throwing away body and life, that's the jumping off the 100-foot pole into the unknown, the cloud of unknowing, as it is sometimes called. You have to be willing to do that. You have to have the courage to step forward into the unknown of your life. Because actually, every moment from here on in is unknown. And it might not be what you're expecting or even wanting. So a blind person leading many blind people could be that the enlightened eye is now blinded by your attachment. That's a possibility. And then if that's true, and there are teachers out there for whom some of this might be true, they're not completely clear, they might be leading other people in the wrong direction. But actually, I think it has more to do, it's a deeper interpretation, that the fully realized person is blind because the essential nature does not see what he is seeing or hear when he is hearing, because again, there is no subject, no object, there is only complete oneness. That individual will help others find their way home. This is all we're doing. I've heard it expressed that we are all walking each other home. And that is what I hope for all of you. And thank you so much for coming in the wind and the rain to see this beautiful temple and to be here together today.
Well, now it's your opportunity to ask questions, comment, and anything you'd like to ask the sensei. And that
Someone online. Yes, please.
Uh, Misha Sensei, I just wanted to say I'm so glad that you're part of Jikoji now. And I'm sorry I wasn't there to help celebrate, but I'm so happy for you and for Jikoji. And
Thank you.
yeah, thanks so much for this amazing talk too. It makes me want to see The Wizard of Oz again immediately because I
Immediately.
had never thought of it this way.
And
But
this is years and years. Like I said, anybody who knows me for any length of time, I've watched this film at least once a year since I was 7. After
yeah.
I got over being scared about the witch, which is the other part, actually. We have to get over being scared about the witch
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
ourselves, right?
Yeah.
But thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you.
Yeah, yeah. Your talk really, oh my gosh, it really spoke to me in so many ways. So thank you so much.
You. Someone here? You can ask anything. You don't have to ask about what I talked about.
Be brave.
Yes, courage. Oh, I did forget to say one thing. I find the source of that word wonderful. It's courage. It's from the French. Cour is heart. So it's taking heart. Taking heart, for instance, that there is no stupid question, by the way. All questions are wonderful and welcome, or comments.
How do you find courage doing my slumps?
It was the part I left out. I realized I was getting long, so I didn't talk about it. So thank you for giving me a chance. Well, I've had a few times in my life where it was very hard to find my courage. And I'm lucky because it's only a few times. I sat meditation a lot more because I didn't know what else to do. And I admit I cried a lot while I was sitting because my heart was broken. And what I found interesting in my sitting was that it changed over the time of the sitting. Like when I first sat down, I'd be real high emotion. And then the longer I sat, I could see it changing. I could see that I was calming a little bit. And I took inspiration from that, okay, all day long you can watch how you get really riled up and emotional. And then also there's this other part. You can see things changing rather than thinking it's all awful, right? Which is the way it feels at first. It's hard to see that there's any movement. But when you finally sit down on your cushion, you do begin to see the rising and the falling. So one thing that ends up happening for me when I'm upset with someone, I'll sit down up, and then I'll begin, and I go back to my breath. And then a few minutes later, comes back. Right? It's not that it just goes away. I don't want to mislead you. It's that what I see is the rising and the falling. And I see that can happen over a longer period of time. I can see that, having a fire or, there was a flood in my house that ruined the entire Zendo that I have in my house. And, it was like, and then, I couldn't even sit in the Zendo. I had to sit in my living room. And I had to tell my group, we're not going to be able to sit here. But one of my students, the wisdom comes from everybody. One of my students, after I waited a week to tell them. And one of my students wrote and said, so why didn't you write us right away so we could come and help you? Because I thought I had to do it myself. And after the work to put it back together, I had to hire some people for the big stuff. But that's the other part is we think we have to do this alone. Some things feel very hard to share. I know that. It feels like if you've lost your job, that's a really hard thing to talk about with other people. I have to admit, close sibling didn't tell my whole family for a year that he had lost his job. I said, why? He was embarrassed. And I thought, we could have been there to support you through that. So don't forget, you're not alone. You have friends, you have family, and you have your Sangha. You have teachers. There's one thing a teacher is good for. You can come and pour your heart out, and the teacher's just going to be there going, wow, okay, I'm here with you. And sometimes that's all we need to give us our courage back to go forward. Thank you for a great question. Are you raising your hand for a question or?
No.
No, okay.
Bowing in gratitude.
Oh.
for the person.
Thank you. Yes.
What about the flying monkeys?
The flying monkeys, you know, it's so interesting because I go through, like my first question actually is, if you knew that you were going to be melted by water, why would you ever have a bucket of water anywhere in your castle? But that's beside the point. The flying monkeys are a little bit like her honor guard. They're under compulsion. They are these negative thoughts in us that we think we have to send out in the world. It's just habit. And Dorothy frees them from this because remember, why did she throw the bucket of water? It was not against the witch. It was a selfless act to save Strawman. That in and of itself tells us something. Right now, it's difficult. You may disagree or agree with what's going on in the world, in our country, in other countries. But to promote violence against those you disagree with, that's the flying monkeys. That's the compulsion to have revenge. The compulsion to treat others the way you think you're being treated. But, you know, I always find it interesting to come back to Christian teaching. Jesus said, he didn't say, you know, when others treat you badly, go ahead and get back at them. He said, if one should strike your cheek, turn the other. Do not strike that. Turn and see the person as completely as you can. There are many people right now who are under compulsion. The compulsion of trying to be loyal, even when they don't like what they're being loyal to, because they're afraid. Underneath everything, you have to remember there's fear. The fear that you are going to be negated, that you are going to lose your job, that you are going to lose your reputation, that you are going to lose yourself, that you will never, ever lose yourself. I wonder if I included this in here. There is a wonderful quote. I'm not sure if I included it or not. So what gets in the way of our courage? Fear of vulnerability, fear of failure, fear of making the wrong choice, a true self. So the quote I wanted to read from that, fear of trusting our true self, this is from Viktor Frankl about the concentration camps during Nazi Germany. We who lived in concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts, comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man but one thing. The last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way, to not be compelled, to make a choice to do the right thing, even when it's scary. Because straw man, the tin man, the lion, they didn't have to try and protect Dorothy. They could have said, "You have a witch after you?" Well, good luck with that. Immediately, they let go of their own concerns. They said, even if it costs me my life, I am going to protect you against this evil witch. So it's not just taking care of ourselves. Because what happened when she destroyed the witch? The monkeys were then freed. The guardsmen were freed. All the negative habit behaviors were freed because of her one selfless act. So if you think that you're just this one little person who can't do anything, think again. You have the power to do great things with a single blade of grass, as it says in one of the sutras. Each of you, have so much power. You just need to find what it is. What did you think the monkeys were?
But they're pretty fun, actually.
They were pretty funny.
And scary.
I hope they never do a remake of The Wizard of Oz. It couldn't possibly be any better. The book, eh. The movie, whoever was the screenwriter. Yes.
I'm so grateful for your share this all. I'm just like, I think it has been a pleasure sitting with me as well, and I want to share your wisdom about it. As a teacher yourself, how do you hold space for other people who are coming here to read and hear wisdom when you yourself feel like maybe there's so much going on internally? Because I think there were moments in my life currently where I feel like I don't feel like I'm qualified when I go with the thing that I'm holding to myself, but with responsibility and with compassion for others, I need to be there for them. So how I really want to hear this.
Thank you. What a wonderful question. I am very fortunate in my life to have had other amazing people with whom I could talk to when I was feeling overwhelmed, as you sound like you are being. Because I've also had I taught in an elementary middle school for 33 years, and I had several important roles during that time, and people coming and talking to me. And you're right, I had my own stuff going on. And sometimes I did not feel qualified to give any advice at all. So the first thing I would say, for many people, just being a good listener is a huge gift. And you can be honest and you can say, I don't know exactly any way to advise you, but I'm here for you. And to me, and I will listen completely and I won't judge you. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is find other people. Maybe they're not at your work, who you trust to hold this with you, not for you, but with you. I mean, I have Nensen and Michael, and I have other teachers in my lineages who, there have been plenty of times when I was like, I have no idea. I've got a real trouble with a student and I don't know what to do. Or I'm feeling like I'm not up to the job. I'm not wise enough. I mean, I feel that way often. So I go to those people and I say, help me. And sometimes they have to say, I don't know exactly how to advise you, but keep coming and talking to me. Right? And sometimes that's all we need to do is get it out of our head. Once in a while, they actually have a good idea. But you are up to whatever it is that has been given to you, or it not have been given to you. But that, again, it doesn't mean you have to do it alone. But you need to seek out that help. And sometimes that's hard because it feels like there's no one at our level that we can do, or even our superiors, because maybe that would look like we didn't know what we were doing, right? It may be somebody you have to have outside of that system. But you need to find 2 or 3 or 4 people that you completely trust to support you. As I say, I've been incredibly fortunate in my life to have people like that. But even then, the one thing that happened to me, I didn't feel like I could tell anybody because of the nature of it. But there was one person outside of all my other circles who I trusted. And it made such a difference just to be able to tell that one person that my heart was broken, or that I was feeling this unbelievable burden and weight of responsibility to not talk about it. There has to be at least one. And it may not be the person that is closest to you. Right? Maybe that's, in my case, that might have been the person I was having the difficulty with, right? So when these other people come to you, just know you don't have to solve their problems. It's not all on you. They have their part to play, and you need to empower them to do that. But the first step is, I am here to listen to you. Know that I do not necessarily have any answers for you. I will do my best. That is all you can ever actually do. It sounds like, one of those stupid, sayings. But de facto, and this is the part that's hard to believe, I know, everybody is actually doing their best in that moment. It may not look like it to you, but that may be all they're capable of in that moment. That's why I say without judgment, because when you can see that that person, no matter what you think of them or what they're doing, that they are actually in that moment trying to do their best, it will make the judgment go off to the side and allow you just to listen. But then, as I say, the second part is you need someone who can just listen to you. Sometimes that's a teacher in, a group like this. Sometimes it's just a good friend. If you're lucky, maybe it's your parents. That would never have been the case for me. I had wonderful parents, but that wasn't going to be a place I was going to go. But I know some people, their children, that's where they're going to go, because even though they're 40 years old, their relationship with their parents is so close. But if your problem is with your parents, well, that obviously isn't going to work, right? So this is the work you have to do for yourself. Find those people in your life. They're there. Develop a relationship with them, and come to you all the time, but once in a while, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I need to be able to talk. Are you willing to do that with me? You can have that conversation up front. And if they say, well, no, oh, well, okay, fine. Then you go talk to somebody else. But I'm pretty sure you have those people in your life. You will find them. Thank you.
Okay, friends, thank you so much for this precious time together in your open hearts and practice. Thank you, Misha. We're gonna do the closing chant, which is on the
Page 2. If
after the
Gently send every being and place with the true merit of Buddha's way. Beatings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to grant them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable. I vow to be kept.